right, I think it's working now. So hello everybody, happy Tuesday. So we're gonna go live and basically talk a little bit about what you should expect and what is expected at musical theater auditions. So this is a basic level 101 musical theater audition prep class. So my name is Michelle, I'm the owner of Broadway Kids Studio, and I'm just creating this so hopefully my students and other students out there can kind of get some information and take it in. So first and foremost, you must arrive on time. Let's say you're auditioning for a musical and the call time for the dance call or for the individual slots is 10 a.m. I would recommend getting there no later than 9:45, especially if it is a dance call, because you have no idea how much time you're gonna have to warm up, or if there's a check-in process, or if you have to leave your shoes or switch shoes for character shoes or tap shoes or anything like that. So you want to give yourself at least 15 minutes in advance of the actual time when you arrive. The next step you have to think about is attire. For a dance call or a performance call, it's very different. So you want to come prepared to every audition. Ask the questions if the director does not tell you to come in dance attire. Dance attire means something different to every single choreographer. So for my classical dancers, you should always have your standard either pink or nude colored tights and black leotard. You should have character shoes that you are very comfortable moving in. Obviously, depending on the show, you're gonna have more or less dance class. So what I would recommend for attire is always look put together. Don't look sloppy, don't come in muted colors. Always look a little bit lively, because the director may not be able to remember every single person's name, but they might remember the boy in the turquoise button-up shirt or the girl with the red bow. I know when I cast shows, whether it's at Broadway Kids or when I used to work at Actors Playhouse and things like that, I would never remember all the names because we would have hundreds of kids come in. So I would remember, oh, the girl over here that did this, or oh, the girl that had on the really funky leggings. So always wear something that is true to your personality, that is appropriate, and that you feel 100% confident and comfortable in. So when you first arrive, you should come, if it's a dance call, we're gonna treat this like it's a musical theater combination call. So you have dance, singing, and acting. So you wanna come with all your shoes prepared. For example, I had a lot of requests today to do something from a chorus line. So we are gonna do a little bit of chorus line stuff today just for fun, and we'll change it up because it's a little bit all over the place lately. So when we're doing something for chorus line, there's tap in that, there's a ballet combination, and there's of course jazz. So you wanna make sure that you're 100% prepared for that. So I would like to see everybody always bringing all of their shoes with them to every audition, especially as a dance call, because you do not know if you're gonna have callbacks right then. You don't know if you're gonna just have a quick combination down the floor. You know, you have no idea until you get into that space. Be familiar with what you're auditioning for. So if you're auditioning for a new musical, do your research on who's the composer, who did it last, what does the music sound like, what are they looking for? That's my dog, Saki. So I have 2 dogs, 2 children, and a husband, so you may see them walking around. So just make yourself familiar. As far as costuming and things like that, you never want to dress as a character. So for example, every time we do Annie, we have somebody dress up as Annie coming in to audition. For 2 reasons you don't want to do that. Number 1, you don't want to initially stereotype yourself as one character. Because if you come in as Annie and you only want to be seen as Annie, they might be like, oh, well, she's only wants Annie and she can't be Annie, so next. You want to become a neutral palette where they can actually see what they feel you'd be the best for. So try to avoid costuming and things like that. And that does not mean you don't dress in a style. So for example, Rock of Ages. If you're coming to audition for Rock of Ages or for Rent, like we just had auditions last week, you do want to dress a little edgier, just not fully as a character. You know, you're not going to wear a long sleeve button up flowered to the floor dress if you're auditioning for Mimi. You want to kind of give and take without copying an exact costume plot from a show. So make sure you're coming in appropriate. Make sure you look put together. A lot of times people come in 5 minutes before an audition and they come in with, you know, Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, and they're like very nonchalant. You want to come in very professional, especially if you do not know this director. If you've never worked at this theater, you want to set your first impression as high as possible, because that is what they're going to remember. They're going to remember if you came in early or if you came in very late. If you have worked for this theater a long time, you don't want to take that for granted. You still want to show respect and arrive early. You want to arrive already have eaten breakfast. You want to arrive in your attire, and you want to be 100% prepared. So then that brings us to, what are we doing first? So normally you want to warm up your voice before you get there. You want to do everything you possibly can before you arrive at the audition. So back in the day when we all auditioned, that are now like 40 something, you know, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have anything of that sort. So I would warm up a cappella in my car, or play a CD of a musical and just sing the entire way to the audition and come back. Now, if you have an early call, like at 7:30, you know, and those of you guys that are in New York, you know that sometimes you have 7:30 cattle calls, you know, in the middle of the city when it's cold. You need to get yourself up as early as you need to ensure that your voice is properly warmed up by that time, because it is up to you to determine what your voice and your body needs, because everybody's different. There's no such thing as the same remedy for everybody. So vocal warm-up. So I'm gonna walk you through a few of them. If you have Apple Music, I highly recommend just engaging it and creating your own playlist for vocal warm-ups and things like that. So vocal warm-ups, we're gonna go through a few of them. For my students that have never done vocal warm-ups on their own, I use several different, if I don't have a piano, I use several different options. I'm gonna show you the one I use the most here. So, I change the vowels when I do my student stuff, but I use peep faint vocal warm-ups. They're pretty basic, they're pretty standard. So the very first one, it says humming. I usually have my students do ah or ooh so the vowels open. So if you hear, you wanna make sure you're relaxed, you go ooh, ooh, ooh. You can change it to ah, of them right here that you can see. Do as many as you need to do to feel 100% comfortable and warmed up. I would recommend warming up for no less than 15 minutes. You know, I would actually recommend doing at least 30-minute warm-ups if you're going to an audition that really matters to you, so that you're giving it your best shot. So don't overthink it. Don't be embarrassed if somebody can hear you. You are an actor and you're a performer, and this is what you do. So the same way somebody who is studying for an exam is going to be reading a book, you need to fine-tune your craft. You need to warm up your voice. You need to make sure you're doing everything in your power to make sure you're 100% at that audition. So I usually tend to have my students warm up in our classes right before we sing always. Now, if your audition is at the end of a day, most likely you're gonna spend all day talking to people and doing things like that. Make sure you take care of your voice. You're not screaming, you're not going to games, you're not, you know, shouting at your siblings. All of that stuff is very important. You're not belting karaoke the night before, because all of that puts strain and also gives you less sleep if you're out partying the night before your audition. So when you're doing voice and you're having a vocal audition, make sure you pay attention to what that theater is requesting. If they want 32 bars, make it as close to 32 bars as possible. If they want a minute, time it out. Make sure that you are understanding that there is a time limit on everything for a reason, because the director does not want to be there delayed all day and then people get upset if they're there auditioning for 5 hours and it's supposed to be a 2-hour call. Make sure you have sang your song over and over again and you know the lyrics. Nowadays, I have a lot of students that come to auditions and they're literally looking at their lyrics on their phone. That looks extremely unprofessional. You're always gonna get beat out by somebody who has practiced and knows their audition best. always. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you show up late and then don't know your lyrics and are holding a device like this to read it, you know, some theaters might even say, you can go, thank you. So always make sure you're prepared. Now, are you gonna mess up possibly? It's live theater. I mean, you're bound to mess up at some point. But you wanna make sure you keep going no matter what, but be prepared. Give yourself the opportunity to do your best. And you can only do your best once you've practiced and practiced and practiced. And that's usually what happens when you're doing a production. When you're doing a production, usually that last show, everybody's like, oh, I wish I had one more. And it's not only because you're gonna miss your friends, because that is part of it, but it's mainly because you feel comfortable in the show, because it's fully memorized. And a lot of times we wait to the very, very last minute to complete that process. And the faster you complete it, the better it's gonna be. So next step is pitch pipes. So if you have a pitch pipe, I have something called Pocket Pitch. It was free. And you can basically, I don't know if you can see that on my screen. It's called Pocket Pitch, and you can see all the different letters here. So once you hit it, it plays the note. Because if you have an a cappella audition, if you start on the wrong note, you're done. You're done. I've been there and done that. I had the wrong sheet music for an audition at Disney, and I had to wing it and just go with it. And it's an awful feeling when you're called back, and at your final callback for a national tour, you realize your sheet music is in the wrong key. You guys have a lot of things that you have access to now. You have musicnotes.com. You have all of these websites that give you everything you could possibly need instantaneously. You no longer have to search and go to Colony Records and do all of these things just for 1 ounce of sheet music. And especially if you're allowed to use digital music. If you're allowed to bring in your phone or a device, make sure it's on airplane mode. Make sure you can play it on airplane mode. Make sure it's pre-cut. So for example, I'm gonna use the song Nothing from a chorus line because one of my students requested it. So I will do it because I said yes. So Nothing is a very overdone song. You know, most people are not gonna sing that now because it is dated, and most students today are using more contemporary music that's amazing. So if you're singing Nothing, you have to figure out where you're gonna start. If you're gonna start in the middle of the song, you better have a cut version on your phone before you enter that room, so that you're not going, hold on 1 second, and then you're testing it out. Because if you're testing it out, that takes time, and that shows that you're not prepared. And you know, at Broadway Kids, we try to basically help students in that moment because we are not an equity theater. We're a performing arts education center. So we're not sitting here, you know, and just saying, nope, get out, you're wrong, you're late. We want you to understand and learn that process. But you also have to be mindful, and you have to make sure that you are coming fully prepared. And you can only learn from your mistakes, so you have to look at it like that. So the beginning of the song Nothing, and we're gonna jump a little bit into acting, starts with, you know, kind of like a monologue set to music, and you have to time it out right. So it goes, okay, go, every day. Now you do not wanna copy everything you hear and see on YouTube. You know, that's the hardest thing. A lot of us will hear a song and we say, that's the way it has to be done, and that's the only way to do it. You wanna make things your own. And you also want to bring in your acting ability into every single thing you do. Dancing, singing, and of course acting. You know, who are you talking to? What took place before? You know, what is your physical action that is taking place before you start singing? That is so important. I have so many students that do this. A whole new world, a dazzling place I never knew. And you're not looking at anybody, and you're not telling me a story. It doesn't matter how pretty your voice is. If you can't connect with an audience member, they're not gonna keep watching. So for example, using the song Nothing, there's 1,000,005 Nothing. So you wanna make sure that you are here and you find the correct track, because there's 1,000,000 of them. So I'm gonna use this one from Stingray Music that I purchased and downloaded. So the music starts. It's very faint. If you do not have a track and they have you bring sheet music, which most professional theaters, that's the way it works. So my teens, as you get older, I need you guys to learn how to use sheet music. You've got to make sure, number one, you are very respectful to every single person you ever meet. You never know when the person checking you in is also the choreographer, or it's irrelevant. You have to be respectful to everybody. Your accompanist that day is your best friend. So be kind, be gentle. These people are reading tons and tons of music every single minute and having requests from performers like us, like this is the tempo, this is what we want, do it again. Give them your tempo, so da 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 da. I tend to sing a section of it while I snap the tempo or I tap the tempo on my hand. Okay, that way you're working together and they can see it. Now your nerves are gonna kick in, your adrenaline's gonna kick in. You might speed up. Understand that the accompanist's job is to accompany you. So if you speed up, he or she will most likely speed up. I have been very lucky my entire career that I've worked with amazing accompanists. Mr. Dave Nagy, I love you and you are nothing but the best. But there are accompanists out there that are gonna mess up. You cannot get frustrated. You have to keep going, but you have to know your tempo and you have to know everything you have. Now, having said that, if you're turning in sheet music, make sure it's marked correctly. Are you slowing down? Where are you stopping? Make sure it's clear. Start, stop. Do you have a bar that's, you have a section before that the accompaniment needs to play? Or do you need a bell tone so that you start? Make all of that as specific as possible. So now I'm gonna show you kind of like an A and B of a song. So this is what happens a lot of times when I have students come in. And they'll come in and they'll say, okay, slate your name and your part. And they'll say, hi, my name is Michelle Emirali, and I'm gonna be auditioning for chorus line, and I'd like any part, is fine. This walking around, I don't know if you can see me, playing with your pockets and doing this, that is very, very, very hard to take in a professional manner. You want to come in, stand tall, feet together or feet shoulder width apart. You want to be confident. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. All of those words are important. My name is Michelle Emirali and I am happy to be auditioning for a chorus line. And answer any questions. Try not to make everything so casual because you do not know what a director is looking for. So you always want to treat them with respect and you always want to treat yourself with integrity. So this first version, if I'm going to do it as person A, I'm so excited because I'm going to go to the High School of Performing Arts. I mean, I was dying to be a serious actress. Anyways, the first day of acting class, we're in the auditorium, and the teacher, Mr. Karp, Anyway, he puts us up on the stage with our legs around each other, one in back of the other, and he says, okay, class, we're going to do improvisations. Now you're on a bobsled, and it's snowing out, and it's cold. Okay, go. So, that was average audition right there. I didn't always look forward. I did zero acting before I started talking, which is a big no-no. So let's try that again, and I want you to see the difference. Now this is my interpretation of the song. I've played this role several times, and every time I played it differently because I had different interactions with the cast members. So, and I grew with each performance. So my version is not the only version. It's not the holier than thou version. You make every single choice on your end that works for you. So now I'm basically going to start with a physical action before, and I'm going to get a little bit more animated. A lot of times we're afraid to go for it because we're afraid of what others may think. But what you have to understand is that person before or after you may have taken that risk. And if you didn't take that risk and they did, they're going to get the part. So you have to just be bold and just go for it without feeling any kind of, fear of being laughed at or things like that. If you mess up, you mess up. I have made up many lyrics in auditions and I'm still here. All right, so take two. I'm so excited because I'm gonna go to the High School of Performing Arts. I mean, I was dying to be a serious actress. Anyways, the first day of acting class, I'm in the auditorium and the teacher, Mr. Karp. Mr. Karp. Anyway, he puts us up on the stage with our legs around each other, one in back of the other, and he says, okay, class, we're going to do improvisations. Now you're on a bobsled, and it's snowing out, and it's cold. Okay, go. Every day for a week, we would try to feel the motion down the hill. Every day for a week, we would try to hear the wind rush, feel the chill. So I dug right down to the bottom of my soul to see what I had inside. Yes, I dug right down to the bottom of my soul, and snow, I feel the cold, I feel the air. And Mr. Carp turns to me and he says, okay, Morales, and what did you feel? And I said, nothing. You see, that was the wrong cut. So I did not listen to that music beforehand. So that has a whole extra bar in there. So the point of that is I would have had to hold that and keep going no matter what. So when you're singing a song, make sure that you sing the whole way through. Now that would not have been a great cut for an audition because it doesn't show my range and it doesn't show my flexibility in a lot of stuff. So the center of that song or the very, very end of that song, in my personal opinion, is probably what somebody should use in order to understand, in order to have a director see their range and their difference in acting, especially at the end of that song. So make sure when you're singing, you are breathing correctly, you're articulating, you're pronouncing all of those words, and you're making bold choices. What I did was what my last director asked me to do, and basically what I thought of that and created. That doesn't mean if I go to an audition and a director says, I want it this way and I want it that way, you have to mold to what that director wants. That is a very important thing that a lot of teens now feel like they can have say over. And that does happen at auditions. Somebody will say, well, that's not how I feel the character is acting. And that's great if you're directing the show, but if you're not directing the show, you've got to leave that creative process in part to the director because you have to kind of work together as a team to ensure that you get there. Now the next step is dancing. So for my students that will say, oh, I'm not a dancer, I'm only a singer, or I'm only an actor. First and foremost, don't ever say you're only anything. You don't tell anyone a single thing. You come in and you are who you are and you let them determine what your strengths are. Now we all have a strength and we all have a weakness, but our job is to create them equally in front of an audition. So for example, when we had audition for Heathers, there was a wonderful girl named Yasmin who came and auditioned, and I noticed her at the dance call. I believe she was wearing a red tank top and black pants. I did not know this student before. I had not heard if she was, you know, a triple threat or a singer, and she caught my eye first and foremost at the dance call. And I was like, wow, she's got a great look. She wore a bold color. She had a cute little pixie haircut, and she was bold, and she was this tiny little thing. And then when she sang, then I realized her strength was actually her voice. I mean, she could wail, and she was fantastic. But she never came in there and said, I'm not a dancer, because she was. She moved well and she did everything. So a few things. So when you're dancing, make sure you are wearing comfortable attire. Make sure you know basic things. A box step and a jazz square is the same thing. That would be step, cross over, step, and open. So you're gonna step forward with the right foot, cross with the left, step back, and open. Very, very basic thing. Step touches, step, touch, step, touch, step, touch, step, touch. Grapevines. Step, crossing back, step, and touch. Step, crossing back, step, and touch. So that is basic 101 movement that we probably all do when we hear any kind of music anyhow. What you want to do if you are not a dancer is you want to make sure you are still taking dance classes, because even if you're a phenomenal singer and a phenomenal actor or actress, you have to be able to move well. Most calls on Broadway will start with a dance call. So you want to make sure that you go in there in a confident way and showcase everything you do know. Take ballet classes just for technique. You don't have to perform and do every single show. Just take ballet classes. Take musical theater classes. The more shows you're in, the more experience you have. Take advantage of all of those places in South Florida and all over the United States that have classes. A lot of times students say, oh, well, that class is too easy for me, so I'm only gonna take this class. And you're doing yourself a disservice. I could take a Ballet 101 class right now and really gain from it and then still jump to a higher class. You wanna make sure your body is always being trained, especially if you're still auditioning, because you never ever know if there's somebody that looks and sounds just like you, but has that one up on a different skill set. Now, when it comes to acting and if monologue selections, if a director asks you to bring a monologue, make sure you are bringing it in the style that matches what you are auditioning for. A lot of times, students will come to me with monologues that are a little bit off the wall, and they try to take such a big risk or try to get a monologue that is so abstract that we don't get it, because a lot of teens, guys, you're not at the level yet where you can make sense of that full monologue. You know, sometimes you need something a little bit more basic. We need to see a very clear beginning, middle, and end. We need to understand who you're talking to. What's the conflict? Are you resolving it? You know, I think it was Bruce Miller, if I'm not mistaken, that said, you know, acting is reacting. And he was absolutely right. He is absolutely right. Acting is reacting. We're always going to look for your reaction in a monologue. What are you reacting to? You know, if it's a comedic monologue, the directors may or may not laugh. You can't overthink that. Sometimes they're in director mode and they're just observing. Some directors, you know, might be sitting there and laughing at everything you say. You just have to keep going no matter what, and that's the hardest thing to do. Material also must be appropriate. You never want to offend somebody in an audition, especially somebody that you do not know, because that is their first impression of you. Same with music. So in the song Nothing, you know, there's a bad word in it. It's nothing crazy, you know, it's BS. I don't think that would offend a director, but if you are a middle schooler or you are in elementary school, I would change that word for your audition. You know, don't just pick a song that has a bad word or a monologue that has a bad word and say, well, I can do it because for the integrity of the play, I can curse right now. You always want to know your audience, and you want to make sure you're not offending anybody at all. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. You know, it's a little bit into auditioning 101. Being prepared is the #1 thing you can do right. Always be prepared. Those of you guys that go to Broadway Kids, you guys have an arsenal of information there. Use us. If any of you guys would like to send your audition videos to me at info@broadwaykidstudio.com or post them on Instagram, whatever you like, I'd love to give you feedback. You can do 30-second song, 30-second monologue. I'll do some more live videos this week as well. I hope you guys had fun. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be posting the BKS lockdown challenge in about 15 minutes. All right? Bye, everybody.